So yeah, I got into music relatively early into my teens. My dad sort of listened to rockier side of things, I guess what you consider to be earlier heavy metal, you know, Black Sabbath and AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and The Who and all those sort of bands, all the classic stuff. And then I first picked up the guitar in probably around 99, 2000. So I had a friend at school who got one for his birthday, and of course I got immediately jealous. So I said, "Oh, I sort of want to learn. I want to learn as well." So we learned together, and it actually worked out really well because it's nice to have someone to sort of bounce off with that kind of thing. So yeah, I got my first guitar around then, and then I played while I was at school, and we did some sort of local tuition. And at that point was the time I really started to get into live music and going to gigs. I lived in London at that point, that's where I'm from. And every weekend we were up in town. We were going to Denmark Street, looking at all the gear in London. We were also, you know, going to the Astoria and into Camden, the World's End, all the venues across London to watch our sort of the bands that we were into, which I guess then was more, and still is, so I'm more of a fan of the heavier side of things. So all the metal stuff, the thrash bands, and you know, sort of the early new metal stuff, and anything metal, I loved it, metal and rock. And then so after that, I decided to go to music college, and my friend who I was learning guitar with decided he wanted to go to music college as well. So we ended up going to the Brighton Institute of Modern Music in Brighton, obviously. And so I signed up for a guitar diploma there in 2003. And yeah, did a year's course, which was really good fun. I mean, you know, I played guitar every day for a year. What can, you know, what's not fun about that? So yeah, I did a year's course. Learned so much there, played with some really good musicians, and obviously I was still early in my guitar career then, but learned so much just sort of playing every day just teaches you to really sort of focus and, you know, really sort of try and hone the craft of the instrument. And we did sort of live performance workshops and played at venues and stuff, and yeah, we just had a really good time. But it was really I don't think at the time I thought it was something that was going to lead to a career. And you know, I still don't do music as a full-time career, but funnily enough, my friend does, who I went to college with. He's a full-time touring guitarist. So but yeah, it was something that I did knowing that I probably wouldn't get a job at the end of it, because you got to be pretty lucky and probably a bit more talented than I was, to be honest. People I learned with at the time, it was just a ridiculous pool of talent that taught me. You know, you had people like Bruce Dickinson was the head of the college at the time. He interviewed me for my sort of audition to get in, so people might know him from Little Angels and from the 80s and his sort of hair metal days, hair rock. And then yeah, people like Guthrie Govan were there, Steve Allsworth, Phil Hilborn, Pat Heath. You had the guys from Top Loader, so Julian Dean and Rob Green, I think they're their names. They were sort of obviously quite big around that time because they'd just come out of sort of mega success with Top Loader. But yeah, just a crazy sort of pool of talent they had teaching students. It was such a good environment to be in and sort of witness, you know, these top level musicians that had sort of done it all by then. Yeah, it was a really good time. Yeah, it was very good. So yeah, so after I left BIMM, so that was 2003 to 2004. I got my diploma, and you know, I didn't choose to carry on. I loved it there, but I didn't want to sort of stay there and do a degree in it. So I moved back to London, and that really spurred me on to actively search for a band and sort of, you know, give it a go, a really good go, you know, not just doing a pub band. I really wanted to sort of go for it. So yeah, pretty soon after I moved back to London, I started looking in the magazines. I found an advert in Kerrang magazine for a North London metal band that were looking for a guitarist for sort of to record a second album and join. So at the time they were called Geared 4. So pretty, not the best name in the world, but sort of they were an established, band at the time. They'd recorded a couple of albums and an EP, and they sent me some tracks over. Learnt the tracks, and I went for an audition, and they really liked me, so I managed to be offered the gig. And it was quite a sort of one of my favourite experiences, really, because I got offered the gig and they said, oh yeah, the gig's yours if you want it. And I was, that's great, yeah. And, they said, if you can, we've got a gig in sort of 3 weeks. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, yeah, we're playing at the Underworld in Camden. And for me at the time, like that, that's not the biggest venue in the world, but for me, I'd seen countless bands there that I absolutely loved. So I was over the moon to be able to think, I just got into this band and now I'm playing one of my favourite venues, like immediately as my first gig out of music college. So it was a real nice time. And came to the gig, did the gig, it went really well. Family and friends came along. It was a nice proud moment. So so I was with those guys for quite a while. We were writing a second album. Actually no, it would have been their third one. And we did gigs up and down the country, played some really good venues and bits and pieces, got into some magazines and got reviews and got featured in newspapers and things like that. And then it all went a bit south. There was a few arguments in the band, which didn't involve me, I will add. And everything sort of fell apart a little bit. And it sort of got to the end of its sort of life, I think. But unfortunately, before we could record the album that we'd been working on for months, so which was a shame. But so we ended that. So that was a shame. But I had a really good time, and we'd learned a lot sort of doing that. So while I was learning guitar, so with my friend from school that I'd mentioned. We decided to start our first band, and I think we put an advert out on like an online forum, as you did back then, sort of in the early 2000s, and it got answered by a few guys. We found a drummer and a vocalist and a bass player that all knew each other already, and we decided to go and meet them. So we had a terrible name. It was called Intent to Ruin, but that was we were a metal band, so and young, so we didn't know much better. But we used to practice at the Peel in Kingston, which is a venue, and a slightly strange experience that the rehearsal studio, which was in the basement of the venue, is also a pub, and also attached to that was a strip club. So I have a vivid memory of me being sort of 17 and being told to wait by the guy, because the guy wasn't, we were going for rehearsal one day and the guy wasn't there yet to open up the rehearsal studio, so they said, I'll just go and wait in the club. So we walked in to see the horrors of strippers in a club during the day. But managed to avoid that and went for rehearsal. But we never really went anywhere with that band, but it was really good fun, and it was our first sort of real experience of playing music with a group and a creative writing process, and sort of actually writing songs and sort of learning off of each other. And that was before we then went on to go to the music college. So after that band finished, and I thought to myself, I really enjoyed my time in Brighton, and I wanted to move back. So I decided to pack my bags back up on all my guitars that I collected by then, and I moved back to Brighton in sort of, must have been, I think 2006. So about a couple of years after I left BIMM, really. So it wasn't too long, but it felt like I'd done a lot in that time. But so I moved back to Brighton 2006, probably early 2007 actually, thinking about it now. Started work, and I was still playing. I was playing music then, because while we were at BIMM and the music college, we had to start a band, like a college band, while we were there in our groups, and we'd done some gigs around town as that group and sort of as projects for the college. And one of the guys that I moved back in with when I moved back to Brighton, he was the other guitarist in that band that I'd lived with in my sort of student house when we were there. We were with six other musicians, it was a pretty loud house. We got noise orders like within the first couple of months from the council, which we promptly framed and all put in the hallway, which was quite good. And then, yeah, so we started the band back up, found a drummer, because I got a job there, and one of the guys was a drummer. So he was a really talented drummer, actually. And his best friend was a vocalist, so we started a band with him. And our other friend Tim, he was a bassist, so we and in a punk band. So punk was his thing, metal was our thing, but he helped us on bass for in the band, essentially. So yeah, we did that for a while. We were gigging all around Brighton, and mostly stayed in Brighton, to be honest, but it was really good fun. We recorded some demos and did some projects there, and we always got offered gigs with the local promoters in Brighton, and we had some really good times playing gigs there. And my friend Tim, who I mentioned, he so as I said, he was a punk. He had a punk band called Afterbirth, which he needed another guitarist for, because he sung and played guitar for the punk band but played bass for us. But I said, okay, I'm not really a punk fan, but I'll help you out because you're helping us out. So at one point, which was a pretty funny day, we did a gig night with the promoter, and he booked both of our bands. So I think the metal band went on first, and Tim was playing bass for us, and I was playing guitar. And then Afterbirth played after, and Tim switched to singing and playing guitar, and I switched to playing guitar for them. So it was a bit of a weird experience playing two bands in one night, but in different styles, but it was good fun. Yeah, then I had, so yeah, we finished that, you know, as all things come to an end project wise. And then I took a few years off playing, to be honest. I was playing at home still, but I sort of got out of the live music. I didn't sort of search for starting another band again. I'd done quite a lot of it by that point and gigged quite a lot, and I sort of felt like I needed a bit of a break from it perhaps, but I still played every day at home. You know, I played guitar at home, and I got really into music gear, collecting guitars and, you know, amps and everything, as we all do as guitarists. So yeah, when the metal band finished, so we got to the sort of end of the project and sort of went our separate ways, and still kept in touch, but yeah, we were still all living around town still, but we didn't really carry on. But then I got a new job. I worked as a buildings manager for an English language school, so that was a bit different. But I needed something to pay the bills, and so I was doing that for quite a long time, and that sort of took me away from the live performing a bit more. Sort of had less time on my hands because I was doing that. Whereas before I was working shift work and had weekends free, and you know, it was well, not always, but yeah. So I was doing that for a living, and while I was doing that, and I was getting more and more into the equipment side of guitar and collecting gear, in 2018 I decided to start a company called Pedalpatch, and I saw a bit of a gap in the market because there was a huge pedal boom around that time. So everyone got into pedal boards and pedals with, you know, channels like That Pedal Show and all the other guitar channels that came up out of it, the Andertons channel, etc. And there were, yeah, I think there was a bit of a gap that I saw where custom cabling for pedal boards, so solderless patch cables and sort of really neat cabling became a thing for guitarists. And I decided to take a bit of a punt, use some savings, and sort of buy some stock where I imported a product as a system, and I created kits for people, custom kits or, you know, pre-sale kits, and it sort of took off from there, to be honest. It was it went quite quickly. So I had quite a lot of interest straight away because of the boom, and sort of promoting it through Facebook groups and you know, different places. And then I actually sent over an email to Pete Honore from Anderton's TV. Anderton's the music shop in Guildford in Surrey, and I said to him, you know, I'd love it, I'd need a bit of promotion, I'd love it if you'd try out the product and let me know what you think. And he was really kind, and he actually managed to put it in front of Lee Anderton, the guy who runs the shop, and they invited me into the shop and said they could be really interested in stocking it. and I went for a meeting with them. We talked about, you know, sort of packaging and making it more retail ready. And from that day, it's been stocked in the shop, as well as a few other shops around the country. And I've had one in Australia. I've got one over in France that stocks it. And it's always been something I do on the side of my day job, but it sort of got my foot into the door of, you know, I used to go to loads of guitar shows and guitar shops all the time, and always been interested in the equipment side of it. So yeah, sort of having a foot in the door of the industry was sort of why I did it. You know, it's and that's what started it, and it's still going strong today. I exhibit at guitar shows across the country, and yeah, it's going really well. So this is the product as it stands at the moment. So this is our it's the patch cable kits, which you do in different sizes. That's for audio, and we do a kit as well for DC cables, so for custom size for powering your pedals and keeping everything neat. So these are the cables themselves. So there's the DC ones and then the audio ones, and then they just go into pedal boards and make everything as neat as they can be. While I was running Pedalpatch, I was working full time, and I was spending the time trying to build Pedalpatch, and, you know, maybe thinking about building it into something that I could do full time, but again, not really seeing it as a definite thing. But I was promoting it at guitar shows up and down the country, so I'd go and exhibit at them. So I got quite a good idea of how they were run, and what was good about them, what was bad about them, how I thought they could be done a bit better. And I was also, at that time, you know, and in a few years before, to be honest, I was getting into photography and graphic design, and sort of it's something that I'd done on the side quite a lot. So I'd sort of built up the skills, and I used the design skills to brand Pedalpatch and, you know, advertise it in a way that seemed to be working. It was quite effective. And I thought, you know what, I think I might want to put on my own guitar show, because living in Brighton, it's one of the most musical cities there is in the country, and it felt a bit weird to me that everywhere else in the country had a guitar show that covered the area, but Brighton had nothing. And we had, you know, music. We've got a lot of music shops in Brighton. There's so many musicians and music venues. I thought there's a definite crowd for it, and a market that's untapped with, you know, and a service that I could provide that allows people to go and try out a load of good gear. So what I did was looked into starting my own guitar show. So I started the Brighton Guitar Show, and that was in 2023. So I hired a venue, which is the Brighton Racecourse, took the plunge, paid a deposit, and then started pleading with everyone I'd met over the years through the industry with Pedalpatch to, you know, give my show a chance, essentially. And it was great. The first show was fantastic. We had a sold out grandstand at the racecourse. Well, two grandstands. So one of them is the main grandstand's guitar amps and accessories, and that's sort of your general sort of loud tryout space, meet the makers, etc. The other hall was the FX Expo, so I had just FX companies in that side, and that was through a guy called Alex from Xander, a pedal company called Xander Circuitry. He'd run an event called the FX Expo, a couple of smaller events, and we got together and said, you know, maybe we could, you know, do this. And he said, yeah, that's fine. Like, you know, use the name for that, and if we do future events across the country, then we can use it. So just trying to build it up from that way. And yeah, so we ran the FX Expo side as like a silent show. So all the pedal builders had to use headphone rigs, and I got really good feedback for that, because no one else had done that over here, and it just worked really well, because all the pedal builders got to talk to their customers without the cacophony of noise that you get at all the other guitar shows, which is inevitable. You know, it's a guitar show, but and I'm used to it, but it can be a bit of a tiring experience trying to sell a product, or, you know, convince people it sounds good when it's just full of noise around it. Yeah, we had a great lineup of we did a small clinics room. So yourself kindly did a talk for me, and we had I said Pat Heath from my the music college days back at BIMM, I got in touch with Pat, one of my tutors, and said to him, look, I'd love you, I'm starting a guitar show 20 years after I last saw you. I'd love you to come along and play and show off your skills and give a lesson to people. And what I try and do at the Brighton show is make the clinics a bit more educational rather than just sort of, you know, everyone loves a guitarist that just shows off and shreds over a backing track. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great. It's nice to see someone play maybe to a level that you can't play to, or, you know, if you appreciate like that skill. But I think it's also important that people learn things when they come to, well, when they come to a show like that. And so I've had people at previous shows do lessons on guitar setup and maintenance, and we've done product demos, but we've also done theory lessons, etc. And yeah, historical talks, and this year we're doing one on pedal board setup. So how, you know, the signal chain works, and how the order of pedals in a pedal board affect your final tone, and, you know, if you use your effects loop and if you don't, and how that affects the tone. So things that are useful daily for guitarists and actually practical to skills to have, you know, if you want to get out there and play live, and even if you don't, even if you're just messing around at home, but it's still useful to have a bit of knowledge behind it and have education, you know. And yeah, so we're doing that. So yeah, the second show in 2024 went really well as well. So after the success of the first year, got it built up, got quite a good reputation. Great lineup of exhibitors came back for 2024. More attendance, you know, sold out of exhibitor space again. Great lineup of clinics and really good feedback. And then I'm running it again this year in 2025 in July. And I'm already nearly sold out of exhibitor space again. Already sorting out another lineup of clinics, hoping for more people through the door, but it seems to be going from strength to strength. And I think that it shows that there's a demand for that kind of show in this area of the country. In the future, things I'm offering through, I've got lots of different plans. So things I'm offering through Pedalpatch, and that'll be linked to the guitar show, but I'm going to be launching with a local pedal builder called Neil from NRG Effects. Some people might know him, but he lives locally to me here. And we're going to be offering pedal building classes. And I'm hoping to use, you know, other builders as well. I'm friends with a lot of different pedal builders, and we can offer an experience day where you come along and you learn from the builder of the pedal, and they will have designed a pedal specifically for the class, and you can come here and learn how to build your own pedal, solder it, how it works, what the components do, how they affect the tone of the pedal, and how you add more gain to a pedal, how you know, lots of different things. It's beyond my technical ability, but it's probably why I sell solderless cables rather than soldered ones. But yeah, so lots more in the pipeline. We're hoping to launch quite a few more experience type days, maybe, you know, pick up winding classes, and yeah, pedal build, rig building classes, lots of things, lots of possibilities. So yeah, keep your eye on the Pedalpatch website for that.